So welcome, Susie, to the Art of Saying No, the free Zoom call that's in this month's Manager Critic group. And it's just me and thee. So I'm chuckling and smiling because I suspect the other people may not have been able to say no to something. And that's why they didn't make it here. And I'm also calculating in the back of my mind going, okay, if you don't pay for it, does that mean you're less likely to say yes to it, and other things might take a higher priority? So I'm also thinking maybe in the future, maybe I do need to charge a fee, because that might be what helps people to break those behaviours. It's always a bit dodgy when you do things like my work, where you do time management courses and people haven't got time to come on the course.
Yeah.
So as it's just you and I, we were just, before we started recording, we said we're going to sort of play around with. There's a couple of things that we can do. We can look at how people say no, or what is happening when they say no and it works and it's all okay. We can also look at what's happening when we say no and it doesn't work in terms of the person who's actually saying it. But I also, what I'll be really curious is what's happening when other people say no and it's okay, and they say no to you. And what happens when they say no and it's not okay.
Okay.
And I think that will give us a sort of lots of different perspectives. I know you'd hope to hear what other people were doing, but if you and I could model out our versions of it, then hopefully that will give you and I some insights, and then those who watch the video later will get some insights, and hopefully we'll get some discussion going. Would that work for you?
That works well for me.
Is there anything else that you'd like to have?
No, not really. That was the purpose of what I came here for.
And is there anything you'd like to know, anything else you'd like to know before we begin?
No, I don't think there is, because obviously I know you very well, so it would be questions that I would possibly have for other attendees. So no, nothing else.
So what other questions would you have for other people? If they were watching the video later, what would you want to know from them?
It would be more along the lines of what sort of experiences have they had when they've said no to people. So, you know, with having both the negative and the positive response back, how it's affected them and how they've got around it without losing that connection or that relationship with the person that has said no, or that they have said no to.
So you'd like to know about people's experiences of when they said no and they haven't lost the connection or the relationship?
Not necessarily, and they haven't. More a case of, well, I suppose it is, and they haven't. It's how it has affected them. Has it always been okay at the end? You know, have they lost clients from it as a result? And if they're teetering on losing clients as a result, how have they resolved that to retain them? Cool.
Well, we'll leave those questions out there, and maybe we'll also answer them ourselves in a moment. So the idea is that we're going to, for the people that are watching the video, and you say, Susie, you've worked with me before, I work with a process called Clean Language, which is a questioning technique where I'm going to ask you some questions, repeat back your words exactly, so that you can start to break down the thought process and actually start to be curious about what is happening for you. And some of the questions you might not know the answer right now, but what will happen is that the question will be posed for you, and then the next time it happens in your life, you'll be able to go, oh, that's what happens. So those of you who are watching the video and you're doing these questions for yourself, just bear in mind that you may not know the answer straight away. And that's why generally as coaches, we work with people over a period of time, is because we'll get curious about some, and some things you'll know straight away, it'll instantly come back. But if your memory recall just doesn't work that way, you didn't know you had to remember it, you didn't know to pay attention to it, then you won't necessarily remember it in the moment, and that's okay too. But just be curious about it in the future, because then the next time it happens, you can be more attentive to what you are experiencing in the moment. And the good thing is, once you know what's happening, you have a choice. You can then work out which parts work for you and which bits don't. And you know enough of the clean questions, and you know about questions. So I'm going to invite you today, Susie, to become the coach too. And you can ask me some questions. And for those that are doing this at home as well, just remember that the most important thing is that you have an attitude of curiosity. That you're asking questions you don't know the answer to, not that you think you know the answer to and you're trying to get someone to see the answer or hear the answer or feel the answer. So ask questions you don't know the answer to, but also ask questions you think the other person might know the answer to. Don't try and catch people out. It's about genuinely asking questions and just knowing that sometimes people don't know, and that's okay. But if they don't know that, then it's a case of you calibrating and saying, well, that question didn't get us any information. Let's try a different question, or ask a different question on something different. And that's all that happens. Is we're just constantly calibrating. How can we squeeze out a bit more information so that that person gets clarity of their own process? You okay with that?
Yep.
So, who would you like to start?
You start with the questions, so it gives me an idea of what questions to be asking.
Well, and remember, you don't have to ask clean language questions. It's about the intention of curiosity that's the most important thing. Okay, so when you are saying no and it works, what kind of no is that no?
It's a confident no, because it doesn't happen very often. One of the reasons why I came on this month's call, as you know, I do have real difficulty saying no. However, what I have got better at is, although before, if somebody asked me to do something, I would instantly say yes, and then after I finish speaking, start panicking about how I'm going to get it done in time. Now, I still tend to say yes, but I will prioritise and say, I can't do that until X, Y, and Z, though. Is that okay with you? Mm-hmm. So it's not really saying no, but it is a downside better than it used to be. But yeah, I feel so much more under control of my workload when I do that. I feel more confident, and I guess it's one of those things, because people aren't used to me saying no. If I do turn and say I can, it will have to be done X, Y, and Z, they have that much more respect and value for it, because I don't say it that often. If it's something that's a quick job, then, you know, I'll just say, yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I find it helps me to be in control. It gives me a much higher level of confidence and that feeling of being valued, that people do respect me when I do say it.
Mm. And when you say no and it works, it's a confident no. And as I know, you're not particularly good at saying no, but what you are saying now, which is different, is you're still saying yes, but you're saying when you can do it.
Yes.
And that means you're more in control.
Yeah.
And when a confident no, what kind of no is that no?
It's still a positive no. I'm never saying no just for the sake of saying no, because as we talked, you know, with last month's Zoom call, the celebration, everything like that, what I really enjoy is helping other people. And if I can make their day easier or make them smile or whatever, that helps me to feel better. So when I am saying no, I'm saying it for the right reasons. So it feels positive. I'm not sitting there going, oh no, I can't, you know, not doing the car mechanic of, oh, you know, that's going to cost you kind of no. It's just, you know, this is what I have to do.
Mm. And when a confident no and a positive no, and it's for the right reasons, what kind of reasons are those right reasons?
There's usually something, if I mean, I've got very good at writing a default diary now of what activities, etc., I have to do each day. So I've got my basic default diary that says these are the kind of activities, and then I write down the specifics. And I've got much better now at being able to look at the diary and be able to work out much more accurately how long something will take me to do. And if that's already in the diary for those particular dates, then once they're in the diary, that's it, they take priority, unless there's an absolute emergency come along.
So the right reason, being a bit unclear, but it sounds like it's about time. So you're looking in your diary, and if you know you haven't got time and you've got things in there already, then that's the right reason to say no.
It is, and it's also out of fairness for all the clients. So I'm just going to open the window up a bit, because where we've shut the door over, I can tell there's a bit echoey in there. Get some of our nice autumn air in. Yeah, it's also as a way of fairness as well, because if I've got a task down for one client, I don't want to just push that client out the way for another one. So we're very much about fairness and treating all our clients the same.
So when a no works, it's a confident no, a positive no, and it's for the right reason, and you're checking if there's enough time. And because you now keep it in your default diary, you know better how long things will take. And it's about fairness. So it's not about pushing out another client just because somebody else has come in. So is there anything else about right when it's the right reason and a positive, confident no?
Also for me, another thing, it was, you know, if I had to work till 11, 12 o'clock at night to get things done, I would. Now I make sure I've got me time. You know, if I look at it and think, well, that will mean I've got to work an extra hour this evening, haven't got any plans, okay, maybe. But other times it's no. As you know, we're in Kefalonia. If it's in the summer, it's like we want to get down to the pool or to the beach, so we work our day out to make sure we have that us time. And if that's going to intrude in that, and therefore I don't get that time to relax and recharge, again, I won't do it because I won't work to my best ability.
Okay. So I'm just going to pause that for a minute then for everybody else to sort of catch up and then think about their own no's. So what we're hearing from Susie is that a confident, positive no is for the right reason, it's fair to the other clients, and it's also fair to you. So you've got, you know, when you want to finish work, and you're making decisions about whether you have anything else in the diary and what the impact's going to be. And if it's going to stop you from being down the beach in the pool and it's going to put other clients out of the way, then it'll be a no.
Yeah, sort of. If it's a quick task, no. If it's a long task that means no pool at all, then yes.
So if it's a short task, you can do it, but if it's a long task, it's a no.
Yeah, unless it is an emergency. If there's something that has to be done, you know, and there's a valid reason why it needs to be done and can't wait until the next day.
What determines an emergency?
It could be things like we've had one client, although we knew in advance what was happening, we were still trying to get some bits together for a one-day Facebook ad campaign for an Amazon launch. Somebody else came along with the opportunity of doing some collaboration work. But it meant we were on a tight timeline in order to get some work done. So again, waiting on stuff coming through, but it had to be done by midnight that night. So it meant I took a break a bit earlier, knowing I wouldn't have that stuff, and then knew I was working in the evening. So those sort of times I will, you know, obviously be a lot more flexible and move things around. But I still do make sure that we get our time as well.
Okay. So for the people that are listening in, this is when I'm asking questions, I'm getting clear or getting some clarity, some information around it. So we've got, and I call them rules or beliefs. So there's a rule that it's going to be a confident, positive no. It's for the right reasons, and it's fair to you and your other clients. And there is another little proviso. If it's an emergency, then you'll break all those rules. And we could go on for ages now looking at that, sort of like how often, how many times, because I think this is what happens with all of us. We have a certain thing, and it'll be like, how many emergencies can you take in a week? And how many emergencies can you take in a month? And at some point we'll all reach our limit, but most of us, I think, are not paying attention to that point. So I'm going to suggest that you ask the same questions to me now, and then I call this sequencing, or it's the process of sequence. We're going to have a look at what happens just before you can say a confident no like that when we do yours again, and we'll do what happens just before for me as well, so that we can start to see, we can build up the picture. This is what's happening when it's happening, but what is the sequence of events that needs to happen building up to being able to do no's like that?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I shall leave you to ask me the question if you can remember it.
So Cheryl, when you are saying no and it works, what kind of no is that?
Well, I'm going to just trust the first answer, sort of try to overthink it. It's an okay no.
And when you say okay, what kind of okay is that?
It's one is I'm okay with saying no, and I know that they're okay with me saying no.
And how do you determine if they are okay with you saying no?
Usually I've asked lots of questions to find out what it is they want to have done, when they want it done, how important it is to them, what they've tried already. Is there anybody else they can ask if I say no? I might even ask the question, okay, I'm not saying no to you, but if I were to say no, then what happens? So that I know what their other choices are instead of assuming I'm the only option. So it's more a case of finding out what all their choices are, being very clear about what they want to have happen, and finding out. I think you asked what kind of okay. So I think from their perspective, it's about, have I asked them loads of questions? Do I understand what they want done, when they want it done by, how long it's going to take me, and do they have any other options? Anybody else they could ask? Or have they asked lots of people and I'm their last port of call, that they've tried loads of other people? So that was, if they've asked a lot of people and not been helped and they're running out of time, the likelihood is I wouldn't be able to say an okay no then. I'd end up having to manipulate something, change something in my diary, my time frame. But an okay no means I've asked them loads of questions and actually I know they have another option, that I'm not their only resource.
Okay, I'll leave that about you changing, because obviously we're talking about if it's a positive, if it works.
Well spotted.
I'm learning. So, and how does that no feel? Where do you feel that no, that okay no?
Good question. It feels like it's here. But what's interesting is it's because if I'm saying no to them, I also, it's a bit like you said about being fair to myself. It's because I've done the work that we do. It's about, I know what's in my diary. I know what I've got coming up. I also know that if I don't say no to this person, I know the consequences going to have on me. So let's say, for example, I've done a lot of listening, a lot of facilitation. So I did like the retreat I just did 5 days ago. That takes quite a lot of energy from me. So if someone said to me, can you facilitate 2 days in London when you get back, like on the Tuesday morning, I know physically and mentally I would not be at my best. So whilst I'd be helping them out because they're stuck, I wouldn't be helping myself out. So I think the okay comes from a place of it comes from here and it's from the heart. And it's sounds a bit cheesy, but it's like, it's about self-care and self-love. So I've checked in, okay, if I cut my holiday short, because basically what would have to happen in that situation, I'd have to go to bed really early. I'd have to do something. I might even have to change my flight to make sure I had enough rest time to be able to do that kind of work. So I would be, I can't remember what the question was now, but so how does it feel? So it feels congruent and it feels honoring of my needs and the needs of the other person. So that no will come from here when I genuinely don't have the resources inside me to do it. But, you know, I physically cannot. And there lies my challenge, because I'm very resourceful. And I do know how to push myself. So if I knew I had to do that, I would know I'd have to change. Like, for example, on holiday, I wouldn't be drinking. I know all the stuff that makes me tired. I would change what I was eating, so I know what gives me loads of energy. I would know exactly what to do to give myself maximum energy, to give myself the maximum potential. And so I can resource myself. But I think what I've learned over the years is, whilst that can push me to, I can only do that for so many periods of time. Sometimes it's just nice to have the go with the flow, not having rules, not trying to push it. Yeah. So that okay means I'm not pushing my own health to the limit. That I'm listening to my body instead of trying to push another mile out of it, trying to get another pound of flesh. So it's from here.
Okay, so when it's an okay no, and you have that feeling here, and you know it's congruent with honouring both yourself and your self-care as well as your clients or whoever's asked, is there anything else about that okay no and that feeling in your chest and your heart?
Well, I feel that when it's said to them, I haven't done it in a place of fear. I'm just saying that I probably don't actually say no. I probably say, really sorry, but I'm not going to do that. In that, and it's usually I can't do it in that time frame. So I don't very often have to say no to people. I usually just say I can't do it then. So usually, so I think it's always like it comes from a place of love. It's a completely honest no. So it's gentle when it lands. It's got a soft tone to it. It's like, really love to help you out, but I can't do that day. Or so there's always there's usually I'd really love to, but I can't. So I don't actually say no. I've just realised that's a bit of a penny drop moment.
I hear some similarities there.
Well, I think that maybe that's why no is so hard for most of us, is because it's quite harsh to hear it. It's like there's no negotiation on it. So I was just trying to play with what kind of okay no would be if I couldn't do it some other time. So like when I really don't want to, I think that comes from, so let's say for example, it's only because it's probably me and you talking, so I apologise now if it's inappropriate, but if someone said to me, would you like to come to an abattoir and watch some animals being slaughtered today? It'd be like, no. So it'd be like, no, but actually no, it wouldn't be like that. Inside, that's what I'll be feeling, like, no. I know straight away without any evaluation, without any checking. I don't need to evaluate, I don't need to check anything. It's like I feel it inside that I do not want to do that thing. Even if that person had convinced me that I really needed to go to do a news report about how bad it is or something, I don't know. I can't think of an example, but there's certain things I think I just know inside my every cell of my body that I don't want to do that. And I think that the okay no is when I can say, no, that just doesn't work for me. That's what I say. No, that wouldn't work for me, or no, that doesn't work for me, that's against my values, or no, that's against things that I really believe in, because I'm clear what I believe in on most cases. I'm still finding out rules and beliefs I didn't know I had, but so that okay no is when, but it still would be no thank you. Thank you for thinking of me, but no thank you.
So if it's something to do with your, forgive me, there's probably not clean language here. If it's something to do with your personal values, you seem to be holding yourself further down. Is that no in a different place to the gentle no?
Yeah, it is actually. Well spotted. Check you out. So the no up here is to do with, I've checked in with myself, and it's simply a timing thing. I don't physically have the time to. I'd love to do it. It's the kind of work I want to do. It's the kind of event I want to be at. It's the kind of people I want to be with. It's everything that I love is up here, and I want to do it, but I've just got a limit to how much I can do. I haven't got enough hours in a day, and I cannot be in two places at once kind of feeling. So I'd love to do it if it was a different time. But down here is, I wouldn't want to do it. I just wouldn't want to do it.
And you say those occasions you could say no. You could actually use the word no.
Well, I think what I didn't know until you just asked me, but I think what used to happen, because this feeling down here is quite volatile. It feels like quite sicky. So it's quite a kind of like, oh, it doesn't feel very nice. And I think what used to happen, I don't think this happens now, is I would perhaps have just almost spoke from the stomach. It would have been like quite fast and like, no, or I wouldn't have said anything at all. So it would be a very typical fight, flight, or freeze kind of response. It would be from a place of fear, defensiveness, aggression, not necessarily aggressively said, but that's the kind of velocity that comes out. And I think what happens now, because I've been practicing curiosity, I will go, oh, that's interesting. That obviously really bothers me. And so it kind of goes through the heart filter before it comes out now, because it's kind of like, okay, well, that's really weird, that's pushed a button. So there's a little bit of a slower process going on. So it still comes out to the person who's receiving it from a love place. It's not, I don't want to attack them, because even when I've got strong beliefs, I do believe that we're all on a journey, and everybody is learning what they need to learn. And if I attack them with my opinions, what I think is right and what I think is wrong, actually that's dishonoring of their beliefs, and therefore why would they listen to me if I'm not going to listen to them? So again, I might ask questions. So you want me to go to an abattoir? Why? What's that about? And what do you think I'm going to get from it? And then I could go, do you know what? I'm really squeamish. I hate anything that's really like anyone's going to get hurt. So there's just no way I could stomach it for whatever reason. So I think that it would go through that process of like, I would be able to talk to them about how it would make me feel and why I just wouldn't be able to go. And also I do get that feeling sometimes when I really want to be in both places at the same time. So then I get the same feeling if I think I'm going to upset somebody. So what tends to happen now is I go through a process of saying, I really want to be able to help you, and I want to be able to help that person, and I don't want to split myself in two. And I really don't know what to do right now. So it's like I am a bit stuck. So I think I will share that responsibility with somebody, so it doesn't become a no. So yeah, I think I think that, I suppose that's it. When you say no, then what happens might be a question we should have been asking. Why do we want to say no? I think no is just because I don't want to do things I don't love anymore. I don't want to spend time doing things I really don't enjoy. So sometimes I don't have to say no. I'm usually negotiating with people on a constant basis. So what do you know now about the art of saying no, Susie?
It's funny, when you were saying your bit just now, I actually realised that I'm probably the same. I don't think I ever actually say the word no, because it does feel harsh. You know, I've noticed I'm the same. I can do that, however, it will have to be then, or I'm really, really going to struggle to do that. It wasn't until you said it, I realised I still don't like actually saying the word no, even if I am postponing, or if it is something that I personally don't like, like the example of the abattoir, that I would actually be able to use the word no. And that, I think, is probably, when it comes down to my real personal beliefs and values, obviously with the environment, veganism and that is where I do struggle to be more curious. That is when it's like I've got it in my head and my heart what my opinion is and what my feelings are about something, and if anyone says anything against that, I close down. I don't become curious. It's kind of like, no, that's what I think, that's how I feel, and it's something I'm very passionate about, and no one's going to come and say something that's going to like dent that passion at all. So on those occasions I say no without any hesitation.
But so there's two bits I was curious about, is that you shut down if you've got anybody that's going to dent your passion, and that's also the same situation when you can say a no. So what kind of no is that no?
It's usually quite a forceful, strong no. If it was something that I am really deadly against, like, if someone turned around to me and said about an abattoir, that would just be just like, I think a few expletives may come out of, why do you think I would even be interested? But it wouldn't necessarily be a curiosity question. It would almost be an accusatory of, do you not know me and what I'm passionate about? Why do you think I would want to go to that?
So it's an accusational question.
Almost, yeah. It's like, you should know me better than to think that would be something I would be interested in.
So I'm just interested in, does that mean you still just ask questions and you don't actually say no?
No, I start off with a no. That would be a no, leaving it very politely compared to what I would probably come out with, and then it would be a, what makes you think I would want to do that? But it's not actually necessarily looking for an answer. Like I say, that's why I feel it's more accusatory than curiosity.
And so when it's real core values, then you can say a no, and it's just a no straight away. And then you might ask, I can't even say that, accusational questions, and you don't really want an answer. You're just like, don't you know me? And you also said that no feels quite harsh.
Yeah.
So when a no feels quite harsh, whereabouts is that no when it feels quite harsh?
Right, kind of like at the top of my stomach, base of my breastbone. It's like a real knot.
And when there's a knot there like that, is there anything else about that no?
If we're talking me saying the no to the other person, that knot is probably there a few seconds before I actually say the word no. That's what almost causes the no to come out, because that's instantly a tension of this person doesn't know me and I thought they did. If it was a complete stranger that said, would I like to do it, then it would be a completely different response. But if it's somebody who I know well, or I think knows me well, that would say it, you know, it's almost like asking me if I want to go fox hunting. Why would I? You know, that kind of thing. And it's like, you should know me better. So that's a real kind of like, it's like a not tension of more about the initial thought of they don't know me like I thought they did.
So it's a no.
And then that's why I think it then comes from the drama triangle rather than genuine curiosity.
So, okay, it sparked a thought for me, so I'm trying to park that now. I'll come back to my thoughts in a minute. So when there's a no, and it's like that thought that they don't know you, and why would they ask that? There's a not. And when there's a confident and positive no, whereabouts is that
no? That's probably more like across the shoulders, because I can actually physically feel the weight coming off my shoulders when they accept the no, or the I really haven't got time, or I can't do it then, but I can do it then. So you can almost kind of feel the tension go in my shoulders, because I know I'm doing the right thing saying no on that occasion, and it's probably more of an assumption from me, but I can usually tell by the reaction that they're okay with it as well. So there's a slight tension there as I'm saying it, and then when I get the response and know they're okay, it's like, yeah, that's fine. I did right saying that.
Okay, so well, now we've got those sort of ideas of what's happening. So I've got a no that's here if it comes from a place of love, and one that comes from here when it's kind of like it's against my values or something. I'm just going to come straight out. So what I want to do now is get curious about what happens just before. And we've got two kinds of no's now, both of us. It'd be interesting how many other kind of no's other people have got. I'm sure there's lots of different no's. At the moment, we've got one that comes from no, not yet, really kind of thing. We want to do it. We would love to do it, but we can't do it when you've asked us to do it. And this one is like, no way. It's just like, it's not up for discussion. It's a kind of, there seems some similarities to them. So when you take the one that takes weight off shoulder, what happens just before a positive, confident no like that?
It is a case of sitting there, evaluating the situation, trying to assess what it is they want done, how long it would take. Sometimes there's extra questions depending on how clear it is what the task is that I've been asked to do. And funny enough, one thing I've actually noticed with both of those no's, it is very much a case of the shoulders no is business, this no is personal.
Oh.
So, which just sitting there thinking about that, because in business is when I really struggle to say no. Because I don't want to, you know, sort of like upset clients or anything like that. So that is very much a business related one. This one is a personal related one.
So this is where we said it's free range of it. But my curiosity is, does that mean you're okay with upsetting personal people? Just so if you don't like to upset clients, but are you okay saying no and upsetting friends and family?
I guess in a way, yes, if they have upset me by something they've asked. If it's something that they've asked that I really want to do. I mean, for example, it's my baby girl's 21st birthday tomorrow. Now, I would love to have been back in the UK, you know, going to the big 21st party she's having at the weekend and everything, and absolutely miss her dearly. And if she had said to me, Mum, I really, really want you here, is there no way you can get here? That would have still been an up here, because that's a hard one of, you know, I just really do want to, but I can't. But my family and friends, I'll be honest, are so good, especially obviously because the distance that we've got, that they rarely put me in that kind of situation of I really want to, but I can't. So the confrontational type ones, for want of a better word, are extremely rare. You know, I mean, they are literally a once in a blue moon. The business on the shoulders ones are probably once a fortnight.
And do you think that's changed then because you've moved? Was it different with family saying no before you moved to Catalonia?
Yes. There were a lot more expectations when we were just up the road than what there is now. And I think that's helped me to be a lot freer and be me as well.
So when you, before you say no from the heart, the shoulder one, and that's to clients, and it can be with family, if they said, you know, really, but they don't tend to now. You tend to doing it, like I saw you looking, sort of doing an evaluation of diary or something, and then you're saying, yes, but I can't do it now, I could do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So what happens just before a diary like that?
It's literally almost like lots of, I guess, almost like thought bubbles going off in my head with all the different things to consider, you know, how long, what's involved, you know, how easy it is to do, how much time will it take, trying to work out all those kind of bits. And almost, because I'm very much, you know, as you know, I'm a creator, I'm very much almost picturing what it is that they want in my head, and then start pulling it all apart of what will that take to do. And then right now I've got that, now look at the diary, do I actually have time to do it? And then, you know, come back with that, I would love to, I can do it then, I can't do it by that date.
Okay. And so when you're creating, you're pulling up and you've got these bubbles, and then you look at how long it's going to take, and then you look at your diary. And you mentioned before a default diary. So is there anything else about a default diary?
I've kind of got two diaries. I've got the default diary, which is just, because again we're doing creative, I set by creative time every day. I set by creative time every day to make sure I have that of what I enjoy doing the most. So it's a case of, that is just says creative time. My actual diary of my to-do list as such includes the actual 3 images for this customer, that image for that customer, etc. So I have one which gives me a reminder of this is the kind of work you should be doing. I have my other one which I have my physical sense of achievement of actually ticking off, yes, that job's done, that job's done, and can sit there and flick through and work out the best places to put things.
So, I mean, it's probably cheating because I work with you as a client, so I know that you do this process. But I think, just to reiterate, from what I'm hearing from you, for benefit of other people listening, is you've taken time out beforehand to plan your working week, and you've started paying attention to how long jobs take, so that when you're saying yes, you're saying it with more realistic time boundaries.
Yes, completely.
So there's something gone on beforehand that's helped you to plan that diary out in the first place, to know how long you need for each of the jobs, so that it's planned in advance rather than just a to-do list that isn't allocated in time in the actual diary.
Yeah.
So that when you've got all that thing going on with the client, you've got something to compare it to.
Yes. Yeah, and it has made such a huge difference.
Okay. So I'm aware of time. We're doing okay. It's 10 to 3. So I'm thinking that if I do the same process with me, if you get you to ask the same questions like what happens just before, the bit I'm really interested in doing now is actually what happens to us when other people say no to us. Because that's where my attention is drawn. I don't know about you, but it's just that I'm thinking, well, if I do all this stuff to avoid saying no to people, my experience tells me it's because I don't like no coming to me.
I'm actually the opposite, but we can go on to that in a minute.
Well, that'll be good. That'll be interesting then.
Yeah.
Because that's my assumption. I don't know yet until I explore it. So, okay, I'll leave you to ask some questions, my dear.
So when you have an okay no, if we're looking at the one from your heart, where it's time constraints, you know, you really want to help, but you can't do it when they want it done. What happens just before that okay no?
Well, there's quite a settled feeling in my stomach that I want to do it. So there's a knowing that I would like to do it. And actually, I've just realised sometimes I'd really like to do it, even though I'm not even capable of doing it. So like, I can get that feeling of like there's someone to be in real distress and they're really in pain about something. And they'll go, I don't know, they need X, Y, and Z fixed, or they need so and so and so built. And I'll get this overwhelming desire that I want to take the pain away from them before I even know whether it's one of my skill sets, whether I actually physically do know how to or could possibly do it or even have the time. So what happens just before is this overwhelming desire to want to help, to take their discomfort or their pain away from them.
And I'm going to ask a very unclean question here. And it's probably more for learning for me. Hopefully it will help some others that are watching the video as well. When you say you have this, yeah, when you got this yearning and overwhelming feeling of wanting to help, does that not fall within the drama triangle?
Well, so for the people that are listening,
as the rescuer,
I don't think it does at that point. At that point, that comes from my just human, heartfelt desire to not see someone else suffer. It literally just comes from a desire for connection, desire for people to be okay and to be happy. But those who haven't heard about Drama Triangle, I'll put the link in the blog post below about Drama Triangle. But it's basically, you've got 3 drama points. One's the rescuer, where you're basically doing it for the other person, even though you don't think they're capable of doing it for themselves, or you think nobody else will do it. So I think the first thing that happens is just that I want to make things better for this person. I think after that, it comes I think the next thing is I have to go through a process of finding out exactly what's involved to be able to help them. And I can fall into rescuer if at that point when I'm listening to them, I start making assumptions without asking questions, that they're not capable of sorting this out for themselves, and that they need me to help them. And some of that's to do with the fact that I want to be needed, and it makes me feel validated that I've got a value and I can help. So I have learned, I used to do that a lot. I don't do that so much now. I will do my utmost to move from this, I'd really love to help them, and I'm going to ask questions to find out. So it comes straight from here back up to the heart. I'm going to find out what's happening for them. Where does it come from? They need the help. What they tried so far. You know, what is actually happening for them right now that means they've actually asked for this help. And I think the difference as well is that they are asking me for help. A rescuer tends to, or my rescue behaviour tends to come because people dropped a hint. And I've decided I'll help them. They haven't even asked me, but they've just gone, oh, for goodness sake, this is all not working. And I've gone, shall I help you with that? Because I just want them to, I want to stop them moaning. So I get this overwhelming desire to make things happy. And when they're unhappy, I used to think I've got to try and sort it out. I'm learning to switch that one off. So I can just either just ignore them. So Mark and I have an ongoing conversation because he's always going, oh, and he's muttering to himself. And I used to go around trying to work out what was making him mutter. And then I realised he mutters about everything. So actually, I can't stop him from muttering. But we go around trying to fix everything. It's like, I've got your dinner. And I think I'll stop the muttering. And I do something else. And he's still muttering. I'm like, actually, he's just going to mutter. That's how he does him. So the rescue, I think, is more that, one, they didn't actually directly ask me for my help. I've made an assumption they need help. So I think that's different. I think it's, and that's probably when the no is harder for me to some extent, because if they're complaining but they're not directly asking me, I can say a no inside my head and I don't have to say it out loud. I'll just go, I'm just going to ignore them. Hopefully they'll sort it out on their own. And I just want to make sure everyone's really clear when I do this. Obviously, it's going out in public. I'm talking about the lady in the bus queue and everybody, because if I hear somebody struggling with something, I'm in there trying to help. And it's one of my endearing qualities, but it also can get me into so much trouble, because actually it's like that. The Boy Scout that crosses the lady over the road that didn't want to go across the road. She just got over and he just takes it all the way back, but she didn't ask. So yeah, I don't think at that level is drama, is the short answer. But what's interesting, because you said it wasn't very clean, it's great, created a lot of conversation and a lot of curiosity for me, but it did take me a long time to get around to the answer, because I'm just having to track it all to work out where it comes from. So no, that initial feeling is just, I just think it's called being human. It's about, wanting to not see other people struggling or suffering. And then I have to do the checking in bit. And that, I have to get back to curiosity, which is that's why I've been so blessed with all these questions and learning how to listen, because without that, I used to just say yes straight away, or say no straight away sometimes. I've noticed that that's the sequence for me. I get that feeling there either because I've got a real desire to help, or a real like, oh, I don't want to do that. So it's kind of like it's an emotional response in my stomach. And then when I get curious, it means I'm showing and honouring that space for both of us, just to understand what's happening for them. But what I've also realised is that there's a safe, I think I've developed ability where I feel safer to say no, which I hadn't noticed that until we just talked about it. But I think it's because I've practiced not feeling, I don't necessarily know very often, but I've practiced not saying yes straight away, or feeling responsible straight away, or feeling I have to do it right now. So the biggest thing I think I've got from our discussion so far is the no is very time orientated.
Yeah.
There's like either it's like absolutely no, never. So then in no period of time ever is it going to happen. So I'm never going to want to do that. So it doesn't matter how many times you try and convince me that I should do X, Y, and Z. I have no aspiration to do it. I do not want to do it. I am not going to do it. Or I really want to do it, but there's a time restraint on when I can physically do that.
And you say with your nose, it starts in the pit of the stomach, either that overwhelming desire to help, or that, complete, that's not something I would ever want to do. Is that the same kind of feeling in your stomach for both? Or is there a difference?
I'll have to pay attention to it more when it happens next. But at the moment, my gut feeling is they feel very similar, and they're like the challenge. So what actually happens at the moment is a bit like nerves versus excitement. It can create the same kind of feeling inside. And I've had to learn to listen to them and work out which one is, I can put the nervous label on it, or it could be an excited label, but if they feel the same. So I think that it's a surge of energy, and it feels like it's sort of coming from the back of my body through to my stomach. And yeah, there's a desire, and I think they actually feel the same. I think it's a nanosecond after that first feeling is what I've just caught as I've stopped to think about it, is that I think what happens is once I evaluate what kind of it is, I quickly work out whether it's I want to say no, or might have to say no. So I think that if it's a desire to help, so for example, if there was somebody laying in the street that had fallen, an old deer had fallen over, that whoosh would go and I would just go and help. There would be I wouldn't be evaluating and questioning it, I would just respond. So I think that's just the knee-jerk reaction to get on and respond to help somebody. But I think that when it comes up and it's not that crisis situation where you have to respond straight away, or more to the point I'm starting to go, actually, I need to stop behaving like everything's a crisis. I think there's a nanosecond where I kind of, that pause makes me go, oh. So what I'm realising is it kind of, it lessens in, can't think of the right word, velocity or momentum or something as it gets away from my body. But there's a horror, it's quite dense here when I go, shit, I'm going to have to say no. So then it comes back inside and goes like those black holes. It's like, because it's now inside and I've got to deal with it. So I think as long as I know I can do something with it, so if I can do something like make a cup of tea or go and rescue, pick the lady up, do whatever I've got, I can physically do something with that emotion straight away, I'm okay. But if something happens, and it could be an assumption, I could be making up in my head, I could be doing anything, but there is something that goes on that goes, oh, I might have to say no, then it goes back in and that becomes more turmoily. And that, I don't think that's any different to, I really don't like that thing, and I would feel physically upset or sick having to do that thing, because it doesn't suit me as a person. I'm not that kind of person. So when the kids, Mark and Lynn, watch movies with people hurting people, I have to leave the room, and I'm like, I sit down, they tell me it's a really nice thing, and then something horrible comes, and I'm going, you told me this, and they'll say, it's never happened before. So hi Lorna, you might need to put your unmute and video on, honey, when you get on, so that'd be great. We'll catch up with you. We'll just carry on. So yeah, I think I've lost my plot a bit, minute, but it's interesting to notice. I think when I think it's going to be a no, it comes back inside. And that's when I get sort of like the tummy turning thing. And so that's when I have to go through that process then of taking it up through the heart, questioning it. And I have to breathe, I've also realised when I was listening to it. To settle it down, to give myself a breathing space to actually process what's happening, because it happens quite quickly. Fabulous. I'm just going to say hello to Lorna. Hi, Lorna.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
That's right, you're here. We've just been exploring no's. I won't go back all over it, the whole of it again. We'll just get you to join in where we're at, and then hopefully you'll get to watch the other hour and add it all in together, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
So what we're doing at the moment is exploring when we say no and it works, that's like what? So if I just get us to recap what we know now, then you'll have a little bit of a summary, and then we'll start asking you some questions, if that's okay with you too.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you know now, Susie? What do you learn?
I know that I've got a real different sense of physical feeling, whether it's kind of like a business orientated or whether it's personal, and whether it's literally like the gut instinct type no. That's not always from a place of curiosity. It's actually more disappointment and anger that someone's asked me to do something that is totally against my beliefs. I mean, that's not always the case. If it is more of a, they want me to do something, and we've established that mostly it's down to time, that if it's something I really want to but cannot physically do, then that's definitely up here, more sort of like and when I say no and they accept it, I get that physical relief. But if it's asking me to do something which is totally against my beliefs or values, then that is very much in the stomach. But when it's business orientated, I find I don't actually utter the word no. I find a different way of saying no rather than actually saying the word no, because it's not something I want to be saying. Its circumstances have prevented me from being able to say, yes, of course, I'll do that now.
What difference does knowing that make, if any?
I think the main difference is thinking more about, like, if somebody asks me something which is against my beliefs, that I feel it's getting curious about it, because it's almost like I don't feel it's right that I should say the word they should know better, because that in itself is an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
So, but actually get more curious about when I have that gut feeling, why do they feel that's something I would be interested in? My answer would still be no, 99% of the time, to actually doing whatever it is, but to actually get more curious about where they're coming from as to why they would even, contemplate. Instead of it being like the accusation of why the hell would I want to do that, actually ask it from a curiosity point of view of what makes you think that's something that I would be interested in? Why did you feel that you wanted to ask me? So it's to actually stop a little bit more on those ones. The others are strange.
One of the things I was going to do, and I thought we had all of us at the beginning, I've written down housekeeping. So what we might do when one person's talking is might turn some of the others on mute, just because the background noise might be there. So if I suddenly mute you, either of you, that's just because it's got a bit of background. While it's okay, I won't bother doing it. So I'll get you to ask me the questions now, and then we're going to come in and find out what Lorna wants to get from her hour with us.
So what have you learned, Cheryl, from knowing that it's an okay no?
That my aversion to saying no is because I really want to help. So that's probably the actually I don't see it as a bad thing not being able to say no or not saying no very often, because if I don't have to say no, that's okay if I can support people. But I've also become aware that the reason why there will be times I have to say no is I am only one person and I physically only have so many hours in the day. So I think being okay with it, knowing that the reason why I don't say no is because I have this human innate desire to help. That's really interesting to feel that and experience it. But I think also what I've recognized is that this learning to do these listening skills, which is, I do it for a living now, but when I started training in 2006, learning to be curious and listening to myself and other people without judgment actually is giving me time to process the emotional response to something. So I think that's the it's a reminder of the gift that if you can take a deep breath and ask a few questions, it actually gives my body physical time to respond to this emotional default response that I'm getting, and help me find the language and the words for it.
And how do you feel knowing that now?
Well, I feel that it'll keep me practicing my breathing exercises and meditation and making sure I take a deep breath before I respond. And it will, I also, as I was describing to you, I remembered how good it feels to be able to say, I want that for you and I want this for me, and sharing the responsibility to get the solution rather than I have to come up with the answer, because I think what has happened in the past is I take the responsibility for being the one that's got to find the solution just because they've told me the problem. And so when I did it with you, I had a real sense of doing it like I would when I was with a clean language with a client. I asked them questions, empowering them to find the solution. And whilst I'm part of that solution in that listening process, I don't necessarily have to act on it. So I think actually remembering to do that in my personal relationships as well would be is and has been very beneficial. So it's been a good reminder to keep practicing that as a skill.
Excellent.
So just because I just want to round that up, Lorna, I don't want to just sort of jump in. So we're exploring the art of saying no, and what we did first of all, the first hour, was actually explore what's happening when we say no and it works. And what we were just about to start doing was explore what happens when other people say no to us. Because I'm just curious about that. What's the impact when we get a no? And so just because I believe by human nature that it's the calibration of what's coming backwards and forwards all the time that impacts our beliefs and our feelings about stuff. Although I started to touch on it, and Susie said she has a completely different response to it, which is good because we can explore that. So before we get started and ask questions, Lorna, because you've worked with me before, so you also know about the questioning technique. Is there anything you'd like to know before we begin?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I personally am getting a lot better at saying no. Yeah, and I hear what Susie was saying about avoiding the actual word no. That's really true. But I'm finding it bit by bit more liberating, actually, say no, because just being me and saying, well, I don't actually want to do it, and it actually frees me up to do much more of the things that I want to do. So my worry is that I say no to too many things now. I might go from one extreme to the other. But I'm quite interested in the bit of having no said to you, because one of my themes has been around facing rejection and seeing it as a rejection. So I'm sort of like, whilst I'm now mastering better saying no, I need to now think about, okay, well, if I ask now, because I've actually started asking, if no is said, you know, what, wow, what does that mean? And sort of getting to the place where I don't see it as a rejection, but just like, it's just not feasible for that person, and it's nothing to do with me, basically. So yeah, so it's an interesting point to actually come in, I think.
Yeah. And just to pick up, and then the reason why I brought the subject to the table for the Zoom call was because I had a number of clients that were struggling with saying no, and so it was a bit of a pattern that came up. So we decided to do it as a free, because I get curious then, and I want to know how I do it as well. But I have to say, I think, and I get a sense for you, Susie, it's similar. There's words I hear people saying, I feel freer, liberating. There's a sense of feeling more in control, that when we can say no. And I think everybody goes through a process to get to that point that they can say a no that is authentic, rather than just I'm saying no for the sake of saying no because I'm going to practice saying no. But when people then go, why? It's like you have no reasoning behind it. The process we go through, but once we worked out what our individual process is, when we say no, I think what I'm hearing is that there's a feeling of being in control. You said, Susie, I know that it makes me feel I feel honoured in the arrangements. I feel heard, and I feel part of a system, but I feel freer to be who I am. And you're using the word liberated. So let's explore then what happens when people say no to us. So as we've been talking for a while, should we ask you first, Lorna, and then we can all ask questions of each other. I'm going to ask some questions, and I'll shut up, and someone else can ask questions. It doesn't have to be just me. So Lorna.
What happens when people say no to me?
Yeah.
Well, because for years it's been such a big deal for me to ask anyone for anything anyway, to now sort of feel more comfortable with asking. Now then, what happens is that inner man comes and says, "See, you shouldn't have asked. You know, you just got to be more self-sufficient. You've got to, do you know what I mean?" And all of that starts happening. See, you shouldn't have asked. You know, because see now, you just feel really bad, and depending obviously on what you're asking, you know. So for me, it's about the beating myself up that I shouldn't have asked. You know, I should be able to do things for myself. You know, and why are you asking people for help and blah blah blah, and or there's that sense of, depending on what it is, embarrassment. You know, that sense of oh God, you see, because people's got me in this zone and think that I'm all together, and you know, by sort of bringing myself down to that vulnerability level now, and now that's confirmed that I'm, do you know what I mean? So there's all of that going on, and so I don't want to get back to that place where, you know, I'm feeling that I have to get it all right, and you know, I cannot be vulnerable, and I can't let people know that, well, actually you don't have all the answers, and you might ask for assistance, you know. So basically it's the inner voice, I think, that sort of beats me up a little bit. And
can you tell where the inner voice is, Susie?
Head.
Definitely around there.
Yeah.
Yes. It's all here.
It's all here.
It's all here. In the head.
So,
you know what I mean?
So what I'm hearing is that
and the pit of my stomach as well. You know, like kind of like a butterfly effect, I suppose.
There's a pit in your stomach, and it's in your head, and it's all over there, and it took you years to be able to ask for help. And if you ask for help and they say no, then that little voice comes back and says, "Oh, you should be able to do it your own. You shouldn't, you know, shouldn't need it." And
the finger comes out.
So I'm going to ask the question then: who's different to that?
Right.
So that
it depends on the situation. I've worked out that yet again, whether it's working with you, that I've managed to actually really start to kind of separate work and home life a lot more. But in business, again, I very rarely ask for help. I have probably only 2, maybe 3 people outside of Martin, you being one of them, that I will ask for help, and I don't feel guilty asking for help. But at the same time, I've actually worked out, well, because I was thinking about this morning before the call, I almost expect a no. So then
Wow,
I'm
yeah.
not disappointed if I get one, and I'm pleasantly pleased if I get a yes.
So when you expect a no, is a relationship between expecting a no and not really asking for help.
Yeah.
So when you ask for help and you get a no, then what happens?
It's just like, yeah, that's fine. No, I appreciate, because I've got better saying no myself, I will automatically validate for the other person why they've said no. Now, bear in mind, this is business. Home, I'm completely opposite. Home, if it's, for example, I want to buy something, I will sit there and I will have all the arguments as to why we should, think about all the reasons, all the possibilities of objections against it, and have all those answers before I even open my mouth. And then if I get a no, then I completely sulk. And you can imagine that. Because as far as I'm concerned, I've answered all the objections, and there was absolutely no reason why that should still be a no.
So you sulk.
Reactions.
And Lorna's got this voice and this butterfly in her stomach that says you should be able to do this on your own. And there's no reason for a no because I've done all the arguments. Okay. Someone asked me the questions.
So, Cheryl,
what happens when someone says no to you then, Cheryl? How does that affect you, or does it affect you?
It doesn't now, but before I started this work, it was like they had just punched me in the chest. It's like, and I can relate to the converse thing about how long it takes, because I would not ask for help. I thought I should be able to do it myself. I should be able to do it. And it would have taken me ages and ages and ages and ages and ages to have the courage to ask. And it's almost like I've taken all my energy and all of my resources to go, could you help me, please? And then they've gone no. And I'm like, just like, there's nothing left in me to hold myself up after getting a no, because it was like, I have gone through, and 9 times out of 10 I haven't asked anybody. I've gone through every emotion. So usually about this thing, I've gone through every other way I could possibly do it myself without having to ask them. And I've tried to do it, and it keeps going wrong. And I've done everything I possibly can to avoid having to ask for help. And it's almost like, don't you understand how difficult it was for me to ask? So when you said, I see the relationship now, and you go like, why would they ask me that? Don't they understand that I don't like that sort of thing? It's like, for me, I'm like, don't you understand how hard it was for me to ask for this? So the feeling is like I've been, well, it's really weird, because I used to, when I get bad feedback, it used to be like a kick in the stomach, but this is like a real blow in the chest. And that's not what happens now, but that's what used to happen. And what I've noticed now is it still comes to here, but I invite myself to be curious about it, and I do a similar process to you where I go, okay, I know how hard it's been for me to say no. So when they say no and then they look really worried that they've upset me, I'll go, absolutely fine, don't worry, I'll find somebody else. But what's interesting is I often say that and I have no idea who I'm going to go to next. So I will do everything I can to make this other person not feel bad about their no, in order that they can feel okay, and then I can, and in my worst times, when I think about my mental health not being particularly good over the last 20 years, I said, oh, don't worry about it, it's absolutely fine, don't worry, I've got other people I can ask, I'll be absolutely sorted. And they go, are you sure? I go, yeah, and they'd leave and I go, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'd be in tears going, I have no idea now what I'm going to do about this.
So I was fascinated with what Susie said about the separation between work or business and home, and I just wondered what she'd done, and how have you done that, Susie, to separate them, to, you know, what tool?
Move to Catalonia.
Same continents.
We moved. No, we're still the same continent.
Oh yeah.
But lots of water between us. Yeah, basically.
Sorry?
We moved to one of the Greek islands from the UK, and because it is mainly myself and Martin. Oh, have we lost her? Oh no, because it is mainly
I
myself
lost you
and
then.
Martin, we've got a lot more time for us. There's a lot less expectations from the family, and
Right.
I've realised the importance of actually enjoying life rather than just working like a slave.
Right. Okay. I mean, I've just thought to myself, maybe I should develop some sort of plan B, you know, like if they say no, then I'll do this instead kind of thing.
That's I think that's what I've started doing. So I don't just put the phone down or the door or whatever and go, oh my god, what am I going to do? I do have some other options.
Yeah.
In fact, I think probably my strategy nowadays is that I think I'm probably doing a bit of that where I'm expecting it to be a no. I'm setting it up so it's okay if the other person to say no. So I say, look, I just need to ask you. It's okay if it's a no because I've got a couple of other people I can ask because I've already done that thinking about who else could I ask if this goes wrong.
Yeah, I've actually heard that phrase used.
Yeah. I think I check up. I think I think the strategy that's actually worked for me and why I'm in that place where I can be okay with it is I've increased my network of people that I ask help from. Therefore, it's never down to one person being my only thing. And I think in the past, really the only person I really asked for help was Mark, my husband. So that put a huge amount of pressure on him. So if he let me down, heaven forbid, it's like then depression would go in because I'd hit a low because I didn't know who else to go to. I didn't want to admit to anybody else I needed help. So I think the truth is I've got a larger network of people I can ask now. So therefore I'm very rarely stuck with just one person. But what that triggered for me though, Lorna, is wondering whether if I had gone to everybody I thought I could possibly go to, I do think that now I'm much more honest and say, look, I've tried everybody and I really need this help. I think I'm much more, and that comes from the heart there. When you talk about heart, I've done it before, Susie, that comes from the heart. It's like, I am okay with saying, I have reached the end. Right, I do not know where else to go with this. And I've tried everything I can in my head and I need some help. So in fact, I put it on Facebook today about my challenge. I've kind of like, and as soon as all the ideas came in, I went, oh, I've got it now. But it's like, I've tried in my own head to try and work this out and it's not working. So I think I'm also okay with, but that does feel very vulnerable.
Yes, it is very vulnerable. I mean, I think my thing is also with hearing the no is that when I know that there's nowhere else to go. And I think the other thing for me is, you know, because I'm a giver, and if you're in a situation where you know, well, for me, I know that at this present moment in time, I'm not having anything to give, then part of me is like, oh my gosh, you know, when are you going to stop? And then I start thinking, oh God, you're so needy. When are you going to be able to actually, you know, have something to give that you can actually give to somebody? And I know that, you know, you don't do things for people so that they can do things for you, but I love being in a position where I can do something for somebody. So for example, this week it was really good because I've got all these skills, and somebody said to me, oh, you know, you're really good at PowerPoint and whatever, sewing and all of that. What can I do for you if you help me to do that? And that was good because I liked that. I thought, oh, good. All right. Well, you know, I'm not in a good place. What you can fill my freezer up, and then I'll help you doing your sewing. Do you know what I mean, or whatever? Do you know? So I didn't feel anyway. I felt good that I can actually exchange something. You know. But when for me, I've been in a position for some time where I feel that I'm the one that's doing all the asking, and I don't like being in that situation.
Okay, so what I picked up on there is that you're a giver, and at the moment you don't feel like you can give, and then you feel like you're asking a lot, and then that gives that the feeling of being needy. And what
Yeah,
worked when someone said, "Well, you can give me help with sewing, and what can I do to give you that back?" So,
yeah.
what do you know now, Susie?
It's very interesting you say that, because through part of that, I'll be honest, I did get slightly distracted because I suddenly started thinking, how often do I actually hear the word no? And it's more so on probably a personal side. I've actually realised that my family are pretty much the same, that no one actually likes saying the word no, with the exception of my mum. But, you know, other members of the family, if they actually don't like using the word no.
Mm.
And I use it 20 times a day with the cats, you know, saying no, don't do this, don't do that. But yeah, I mean, I'm very much the same, that I struggle to ask for help in the first place. And I am always thinking in the back of my mind, what can I do back? Because almost like don't want to be feeling in debt of somebody.
Yes.
Yeah. So what that brought up for me was that there was a couple of things. Was that when you were saying about the giving, is I thought actually just by being a human being and showing up and listening, or just being quiet, or just doing your own thing, we are giving to the world in our own shape or form at that time. I also recognised that I was on this whole thing about not being in debt. I was really worried. Every time anyone did anything for me, I had to do it back, and I needed to be a bit fair. And I've started to realise that the world is abundant, and that I can give it to lots of different people, and it will come back in lots of different ways. But this whole ethos of, you know, give as receive, and I get that, and I got it on a logical level, but I felt like I was giving loads and I wasn't receiving. But it took me a while to realise it's because, one, I wasn't telling people what help I needed. Two, I was saying no to people helping me. I've just realised that, as we've talked about that. People would offer me help and I go, no, it's all right.
Yeah.
So I only want help if I've asked for it. Don't make me look like I'm vulnerable and weak and you've had to offer, will you? Because, you know, that just isn't okay. However, I do that to everybody else. That's all right. That's my light bulb moment, is that when people offer me help, I used to say no. And I think what's happening now more, when people offer me help, I go, actually, that'd be really helpful. Thank you. Because I know that gives them the opportunity to give. I will check, do you want anything back in return? And if they genuinely don't need anything, that's fine. If they do want something, then we'll look at it. And then I have to go through that process of whether I can do it now or not. But I think, yeah, that's the bit of light bulb moment, is that I'm actually, people offer me help and I say no. And if I was saying yes to the stuff they offered, I probably would be in balance more in life. So, going through all that then, when the subject header is the art of saying no, what do you know now? I'm going to ask you 3 questions. What do you know now? What difference does knowing that make? And what would you like to have happen going forward as a result of knowing this information? All right. So we'll do 1 question each. We'll go round, and then we'll be able to wrap up from there as well. So, what do you know now, Lorna, about no?
That it's okay to say no, and it's okay to have people say no to you. And I know even more, I knew it before, but it's kind of like cemented the fact that, you know, having someone say no to you does not mean that, you know, you're this weakling, this needy, this vulnerable person. And also as well, what I've heard you say as well, which I don't always do, which I am going to do, is say, oh, so, okay, so I'd like you to do so. What can I do for you in return? Yeah. So ask the question, because even a lot of times I think it, but I don't ask it. Yeah. Just ask the question. And like you said, if they don't want anything, that's fine. But at least you give them the opportunity. So yeah. So that's a good learning for me.
What do you know now, Susie?
Probably how much I actually separate work from personal now. I knew I kind of did from a timeline point of view, but didn't realise quite how much I did from an emotional point of view. Because I used to be such a workaholic, to actually realise how I've managed to completely separate it and how it has a completely different feeling to me when it comes to, from someone close to me than it does if it's from work. But yeah, it's quite interesting to see that, realising that it's more of a not so curious if it's from a close person than if it's from business.
Okay.
And what about yourself, Cheryl? What have you learned?
Well, I think probably the big one is that the more I allow people to help me, the less I have to say no, because I'm more resourced. So therefore, I'm more available, I'm more accommodating, I'm more flexible, because I'm not trying to do this Lone Ranger kind of activity. But also I think that there's an assumption in here, a little story going on in my head, that if we have to, I'm not saying that's why you went, but it's a story I'm making up, like you have to move countries in order to be able to say no to family members, because our expectations are so high of ourselves, what we think we should do, and we can't say no, then that's quite challenging, isn't it? So therefore, it's definitely worth us learning you, because I know you really like Kefalonia and you really wanted to be on the island, and there was other factors. But I think I do know of some people who have moved countries because they had to put a physical distance because they didn't know how to say no. So imagine if you could be with your family and say no, how much more supported we might feel in our family unit if we could set our boundaries when they work and say, yes, I'm available to help, or I'm not, rather than perhaps isolating ourselves because we can't say no occasionally. And I wonder how many of us do isolate ourselves because we can't say no. So I think
as much as I don't want to move back to the UK, because I do love it here, I do feel as though if we did, or if they moved out here, I would be much stronger at saying no now, because I've now experienced that freedom that there is. And also, I mean, it's more mum and the kids. You know, they have now got that level of independence because I haven't been just round the corner to bail them out. And I don't mean police, but, you know, to help them out every 2 minutes, or to give them a lift here and give them a lift there. So they've had to cope.
Yeah.
So as a result, I think if we were all in the same location again, it would be different now.
Yeah. And I think that's the key learning for me, is that actually, if you don't know how to say no, and you don't know how to ask for help, and you don't know how to let people, then actually what you could end up doing is isolating yourself without meaning to. And so actually that's not how we're designed to be as human beings. So it's a really important part of it. So I think the importance of it is really what I've learned from the discussion today. So given all that, Lorna, what difference does knowing all this make, if any?
What difference is it going to make?
What difference does knowing it make in this moment?
Actually, the difference that I'm currently feeling is that I feel at peace with myself. There's a sense of, okay, it's all right, you're all right, you know. So there is that sense of calm, I think, that's come over me, and, you know, kind of like, okay, so the anxiety that generally tends to be there, just thinking about, you know, being told no, because I think saying no has grown. You know, I've had to do that for my own sanity, really. But just thinking about it now, I don't think, you know, I don't get the flutters. Oh my God, you know, that's, so there's more of a sense of, yeah, it's okay, and I know it will take time, but yeah, you know, no one's looking at you in a certain way. You know, it's all in your head, kind of thing. So just be happy with it, and you know, if you do get a sort of a down day where you feel, you know, rejected, or you feel whatever, just, you know, sort of like have a word with yourself. So yeah, it's very much more sense of calm.
Yes, you feel it's a more sense of calm, more peace. And if you do find yourself with that voice, just have a word with yourself.
Yeah, have a word with yourself. Yeah.
So, Susie, what difference does knowing that make? That there is a difference between work and home, and if you all live together now, it would be different.
Back to the usual thing with me of being more in control. So more confident that I could say no to family more and to friends more, because that was always my pardon. And saying no less to Martin, apparently.
Yeah, I'll cite out the story then, because Mark never says no, and even to the point where I used to say, "Is that a no?" and he'd go, "Yes." But the thing is, if you start training people to say no, you have to be ready for the no's, because he does say no to me now. That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest difference it's made to me is appreciation, that I do feel like I've finally got that work-life balance that I've been after for so long. That it's actually making me realise that I can differentiate one from the other as and when I need to, and that there are still ways I can be there for my family, even with the physical distance between us, and I can still say no from here.
I think the other thing for me is that I actually get a sense that it's okay to be honest.
Yeah.
I get a sense of, oh my gosh, I'm being honest. I don't actually want to do that, or, rather than finding 5 million reasons why you should do something that you don't, deep down in the core, you don't actually want to do, or you've got something else to do. Especially for me, it's where one of my children has been the one that I found it difficult to say no to. But actually, I say no, and she's getting on with it, and like she's having to cope, and the world isn't falling apart, and and I'm able to accomplish. But kind of like saying, oh, I can actually say what I truly feel. That is liberating.
Yeah.
And calming for me, I think. And I don't have to get stressed and, oh God, if I don't do it, is she going to do something? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. It's lovely.
So the difference that's just made to me listening to all that is I've realised that being honest and being truthful with people, and doing it from a place of love and care, and not doing it, I think it's about the attitude and the tone. That's the difference it's made to me. If you're doing it, whether it's like, why don't you know, or you should know better, or whatever, it doesn't land with love and kindness. So I think it's about if you're doing it from a place of, and I think that for me, it's reminded me why it's so important for me to keep an updated model of when I'm working at my best, when I'm learning at my best, when I'm living my best. I need to know in my own head how I want my world to be, so that when I'm being asked questions, I can calibrate against it. So one of the things that Mark and I it's made me realise is that we got 3 grandchildren that are now a 2-hour drive away, and we want to be there, and we want to be good grandparents. But we've tried this travelling, and we haven't been up loads. We're just trying to add in these extra weekends. We're really tired.
Yeah.
So it's like, actually, what we've said we're going to do is sit down and actually really think about what kind of grandparents do we want to be when we've got this physical distance? What can we do while we're apart? So we haven't chosen to be apart, but that's what we are. We can travel up there, but actually that's physically tiring us. If you work all week and then you've got to work, it feels like the whole process of traveling. So what it's made me realise is that I can only be honest, and I can only come from a place without drama or angst or frustration or sarcasm or all the other things that come when I'm frustrated and I'm having to say no and I feel guilty. I can only do that when I have an up-to-date, clear model at all times of how I want my life to be. Otherwise, I've got nothing to calibrate it against. And when things change, I have to stop and evaluate that. And I think that's why this year's been a bit challenging for me, probably saying no. Some things we've just said no to straight away because it's a foregone conclusion because of Mark's heart attack. It was like, well, that isn't going to happen. And there's other things that we haven't been so good at saying no to. And it's because we're not clear how we want it to be. So I think, So that's what I've got from it, is you have to know what you want yourself. And to talk about it as clarity, you need to know what you want yourself, how you want your week to be, how you want your life to be. So when people ask you questions, you've got something to calibrate against it. In the first place, I think that's the thing I've got. So given all that, and you've invested 2 hours of your time, and you've got a bit of video to watch later, Lorna, what would you like to have happen next? So what's your mug say? Happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life. Fabulous. So what would you like to have happen now you know all this, Lorna? What are you going to do differently, if anything?
I think for me, what I want to, just following on from the last thing that you said, what I would want to have happen next is to actually spend more time looking at how I would want things to be. You know, to spend more time with me saying, you know, just asking that question, okay, all things, this is how I would like my day to go. This is how I'd like my year to go. And in order for that to happen, these are some things I'm not prepared to do. And because I don't really, to be honest, spend enough time doing that, you know, that kind of inner time, you know, I struggle to do that. And it's not because I don't see the need for it or whatever. When you sort of had a lifetime of sort of not thinking about yourself, and all of a sudden you're kind of in that place where you think, well, actually, I do deserve to spend some time myself. I find that a huge struggle. You know that, Cheryl. You know, it's just so difficult. I mean, it's getting better, but you know, just asking myself that question, really, you know, what would you like to have happen, and what difference would it make? How would it actually help your stress levels, and how would it make your day go? And I've come a long way from where I was, you know, to relocate, you know, hundreds of miles away from the family. That's a massive thing in and of itself. But not sort of like come to a place where I say, well, actually, I'm not going to run down to London every couple of weeks because this one wants me to be there, you know. And people are getting on with their lives. They, you know, there's Zoom, and there's other things that we can do. There's digital stuff, you know. We don't have to be faced, and it's just a great feeling, and I'm so at home. So yeah, I think for me, what I'd like to have happen is to carve out more time, to ask myself questions and answer them, and cement that in myself, you know, so that confidence in what I want to be and what I want to achieve comes through in a more natural way rather than a forceful way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So spend time looking at how you would like things to be.
Yeah.
So carve that time out. Fab.
Time out.
Susie, what would you like to have happen?
I'm not sure really. I certainly want to be more curious if it's a close person asks me to do something that gives me that pit in the stomach, and to be certainly more curious how I respond. But like I say, that's so rare that happens. It tends to be an initial gut reaction. Whether I will remember to be more curious the next time it happens is another thing, but I'd like to think I would be. As far as, you know, with what Lorna was just saying, although I'm constantly on that road, with working with you, Cheryl, I'm already really clear, you know, what I want. Not that I like having my life completely planned, but I know there's certain milestones that I want to achieve, like in the next 3 months, the next 12 months, by the time I'm 50. So I've already kind of got that mapped out of those are key things that I really want and how I need to be in order to achieve that. So I guess I'm lucky from that point of view, that from a business point of view, it's just like, yeah, you know, just go with it. And life, to be honest, it's got to the stage, it's just go with the flow now. I have got to be more lenient on Martin. And that's not him shouting that out to me just now. That is something that I have actually, just by him saying that as a joke, it has actually made me realise that certainly when we were back in the UK, I would have no hesitation saying no to him if it was a case of doing something for the children instead, which was grossly unfair. So I'd like to think that I am getting better at not saying no so much to him, because it is the two of us now. You know, we have so much more time together now than we did have before. I'm not being sent out to be mum's taxi every 2 minutes, or, you know, popping around getting some shopping every 5 minutes for someone else. You know, that it is very much more. And as Lorna said, you know, they do survive. It's called kids growing up. They are perfectly capable of sorting their lives out themselves. All the time they know they've got mum there to do it for them. It's just a habit they've been in. So breaking that habit is probably one of the best things I did. But the fact that I love it where I am, but, you know, just breaking that habit has actually really helped them and given me a sense of pride as well, that they haven't fallen apart. And I was really worried that I would have that feeling of I'm not needed because they're coping okay without me. But actually it feels good, because it means I did a good job as a mum, that they're now off out in the world and they're succeeding.
Yeah.
I feel some celebrations are required.
Yes.
So, what I'd like to have happen is I'm going to take my own advice and go and fill out my Do Delegate or Ditch workbook, because I realise I need to update my models. Mine are a little bit, there's been some changes this year. We've been kind of loosely doing it, and I'm roughly I know the rhythm I want for next year. And I've just got to check in, because it's that, and so I need to check my models out. That's what I've got to do myself personally. But I also, at the end of this video, want to just share with you guys that Do Delegate or Ditch is a 2-day retreat that I run here in the UK. But I've become aware that it's something it's just needed globally. So I'm going to be putting it online, and I'm piloting it for the first time starting on the 30th of October, which is a Monday, 12 till 2. And so 6 weeks will run from the 30th of October to the 4th of December. Then we'll take December off, and then we'll be back on the 8th of January and the 15th of January. But it'll be a mastermind group, which it'll be 6 to 8 people in this kind of environment. And we will be spending the 8 weeks setting you up for success, first of all. So if you were managing your time and, you know, your life was just the way you'd like it to be, it'd be like what, and we'd get the course going. But you're going to get some real detailed thing about working, learning and living at your best. And like you just found out, Susie, you might have noticed a bit of a difference when there's an extra person comes into the group. When people work one-to-one coaching with someone like me, you get to hear your own thoughts. That's great. When you work with someone who's a coach stroke mentor, I can tell you what's worked for me and what's worked for other clients. That's okay. But when you get the magic of a group going and you've got 6 people, that kind of there's a kind of affirming, it's like, oh, thank goodness it's not just me kind of feeling. It can just take it, even if, you know, I told you that I'm a successful coach and I have lots of clients, 330 odd clients in my books. You know, I can guarantee you're not the only one going through this. People work with me because of that reason. When you physically hear and see other people talking about the same stuff, you go, oh, thank goodness it's not just me. So it can kind of settle your system down to actually be more curious, as you say, and find out how that goes. So that program is all going to be looking at your decision-making process, because that's what the No is all about. It's how do you make a decision? And if you're making it very quickly, you're probably not aware of what your variables are. What are you calibrating against? And if the only thing you're calibrating against is I don't want to upset the other person, then you may end up shortchanging yourself and them, because you'll end up doing work that you're not really, or tasks or hobbies or things that you're not really bought into yourself. So we look at your decision-making model, we look at time management, and we also look at then how that impacts your ability to plan. Because one of the things that does happen is you've all got different time profiles. And so sometimes we can only sort of see a week ahead. Some people are like big picture, like 10 years ahead, but can't do the detail. And so most of it, my experience, is because you don't understand how you're making a decision and you don't have a clear model of how you want it to be to calibrate against in the first place. So if you don't know how you want your day to be, if someone starts asking you stuff halfway through the day, you're going to keep saying yes because you had no other better option. You didn't know what you wanted, so you go with the flow. Whereas if you actually knew what you wanted in the first place, you're more likely to be able to say no at the end. So there is an offer for those who sign up for this that it's going to be out in the new year, probably at $997 for the 8-week mastermind group. But it's actually going out now at $350. So if you're interested in that, and it's primarily because I've run it live up to now for the last 5 years, and it's the first time I will be running it on Zoom. I've been practicing on Zoom for the last 6 months. I'm pretty sure it's going to be absolutely fantastic and wow. But I'm doing it slightly reduced because I want some feedback on the technology side of stuff from the people that we're working with, just to make sure it's all working. Because I have to get used to the fact that I can only see the top of your glasses now, Lorna, see, and then I can't see you. There she is. It's just that I have to work out how my brain's going to work when I've got 8 faces here and it all keeps moving and changing.
Yeah.
So it just is a test out for me. So that gives us 10 minutes before we finish our 2-hour workshop today on the art of saying no. Have you got any questions or anything else you'd like to know before we go?
No, I don't think so.
No? Thank you for sharing space with me. Go out there and say no and receive help and ask for help and get us all connected with more clarity and confidence. Okay, guys.
You too. Take care.
Fantastic session, Cheryl.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your honesty. I can't press the end button. It is.